Just start off, just for those who don't know, tell them who Donovan Dijak is.
Well, I've been wrestling about 3 years now. Wrestle consistently for a few companies, but most of which are based in the Northeast. Started at a company called Chaotic Wrestling. I still work for some other local companies, Northeast Wrestling, XWA, Beyond in Rhode Island, and more recently than that, I signed earlier this year with Ring of Honor. So that's mostly the companies I work for. As far as style goes, I like to consider myself someone who can do a little bit of everything. I'm a taller guy. I use my height to my advantage, things like that. What else do you want to know?
Oh, that's fine. Just give it a general description. Did you grow up a wrestling fan?
Sort of. I started watching wrestling when I was 12. That's really in the peak of the Attitude Era, because my brother started watching around then. Before that, we didn't really get cable channels, so it wasn't too available to us. But and that my parents kind of discouraged us watching it. So, I mean, we would sort of try, but it would be more unsuccessful than usual. Then finally, around 1998 is when 98, 99 is when I started watching a little more religiously, and I would sneak in at night and record Monday Night Raw and stuff on VHS tapes.
Wow.
And every so often we would get pay-per-views over my friend's house and things like that. So that's really when I started becoming a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And then from 98 till about 2002, 2003 is when I watched pretty consistently, but that was when high school sports started to take over most of my time.
Mm-hmm. Favorite wrestler? Growing up?
I'm sorry. What's that?
Your favorite wrestler growing up?
My favorite wrestler was probably Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed a lot of the character sort of stuff from him. So as a teenager, he's sort of who I gravitated towards.
Right. I know in college I saw you played football and basketball, correct?
That's right.
I saw you as a New England Patriots fan, so I'm sure you're happy with the other night. Do you watch college football any?
Not often. I'll flip on a game when it seems to be exciting, but I never really gravitated towards college football. I mean, I played college football, but I never really found the product super exciting, just because it's hard for me to get invested in something if I don't specifically have a team.
Right.
And the teams around here are kind of, I mean, like I played for the University of Massachusetts, but we were 1AA at the time, and then Boston College was one of the bigger teams, but they were, it never really felt like my team, so
right.
I never really gravitated towards college football too much.
Favorite NBA team?
My favorite NBA team is the Celtics.
Celtics.
Yeah, I always watched the Celtics, even when I was a little kid. Now it's a little tougher with my training schedule and regimen. I'm always on the road and stuff. But it doesn't feel like I'm missing too much because they're pretty terrible.
So what made you decide to start wrestling?
After I graduated from college in 2011, I guess it was, I had a lot more free time because, at the time I was used to playing two sports. I played two to three sports throughout high school and college, so I never really had any sort of free leisure time. So after I graduated, I started working full time, and it was a 9-to-5 job. So I had my nights free, and I didn't really know what to do with them, which was strange for me. So I started kind of watching wrestling again in my free time. So that was around 2011, 2012, I guess. And it was around the time when CM Punk was starting to gain some steam and some momentum outside of pro wrestling. So that was that kind of drew me in at the time. So I watched the products, both WWE and TNA and whatever else was available.
Man, I saw your tweet the other day. You talked about it's going to be a shame that we'll never see CM Punk and Kevin Owens. Man, you nailed it. It's a shame that we'll never get to see that.
Oh, yes. I mean, you never say never. You don't know if it's still ever.
That's true.
Make a comeback in one promotion or another. But yeah, I feel like that would be a really awesome match to watch. So hopefully one day.
I watched your match with Biff Busick on YouTube, and like you said, you're a big guy, but my goodness, but the way you move it, you can't tell. You don't move like a big guy. Just, what are your strengths and your weaknesses as a wrestler, you feel like?
It's hard to say to talk about strengths and weaknesses because it's such a I mean, it's not an exact science. Everything about pro wrestling is an art form. So some people like things one way, and some people like things another way. So it's hard to speak of what I would consider a strength and weakness because I feel like I do everything to the best of my ability, and I feel like I'm that I'm proficient at everything. But I also feel like I need to improve on everything at the same time. So it's kind of this funky balance between thinking that you're, going into things with the mindset that you're capable of doing anything, but also having the rationale and the reality to realize that everything you do is always going to be capable of being improved, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, like you said, you wrestled in Chaotic Wrestling before your time in ROH and various other wrestling promotions. Your time in Chaotic Wrestling, I would imagine, was huge for you. You held title belt, I think, in Chaotic Wrestling for 100 and some odd days. Just talk about your time there and how that was beneficial to you now.
Yeah, it's definitely a great promotion. It was definitely a helpful time for me. Luckily for me, the New England Pro Wrestling Academy was and is currently closely associated with Chaotic Wrestling. It actually, the facility used to be called the Chaotic Training Center. So the two companies have close ties with one another. So right from the get-go, you get early opportunities with Chaotic, which is always beneficial to everybody who comes to the school because it's a very how do I describe it? I would say it's the right amount of old school combined with new school sort of mentality, like a lot of storytelling. The fundamentals are pushed very heavily, but at the same time, you're encouraged to be creative and be to express yourself in multiple ways, and your character is pushed a lot. So it's a great company to sort of grind your teeth in, and so my opportunities in that company came early, and there were definitely a lot of guys that I was able to learn from and have programs with. And it's a fascinating company to be a part of, and I'm definitely proud to still be a member of the roster there.
Well, since your time in ROH, you won the Top Prospect tournament, and after that, you joined the House of Truth with Truth Martini. Just talk about your time in ROH and how that's been so far.
It's been a great experience. Being around guys like Truth Martini and Jay Lethal. I think more importantly than anything else is and there's a lot of great benefits obviously to both great minds, business, and everything like that, but just part of the presence and the spectacle of those guys is really more beneficial than anything else, because you get to experience what it's like to be that sort of top level competitor, what it's like to have the spotlight on you, even if it's just kind of like the resonating sort of side spotlight, like I just happen to be in the picture, but it's still a cool thing to experience. It gives me something to strive and work for, and it also gives me something to sort of craft myself around, something to emulate, so to speak, so that one day I can be that caliber of a
basic, and I'm pretty sure on ROH too, you work as a heel. Do you prefer working as a heel over a babyface?
Honestly, it sort of depends on the guy I'm wrestling. I'd say 99% of the time, I just kind of, I might design my matches in one way or another, but most of the time I portray the same sort of character, and it depends on the crowd as to whether or not they boo or cheer me, because it's such a fine line nowadays between the two.
Right.
I've even as this character, I've never been the type to do like over the top sort of like grab the belt and try to hit someone with a belt. It just doesn't really fit who I am. Like Lethal does that stuff a lot, which is fine. That fits his character. For me, it's a little different. It's more of a fine line that you try to balance. Depending on who I'm wrestling, I might try to tone down some of the more athletic stuff, just because I don't want to take away from their moveset or their shine or whatever it happens to be. But I'd say most of the time I go out there and wrestle from a character standpoint, from a execution standpoint, pretty close to the same way, no matter what, really.
You were recently named a Pro Wrestling Illustrated's 500 list, and I'm sure that's a huge honor. Congratulations, by the way. What do you think has caused your rise so quickly? Can you wrestle in such a short amount of time?
I mean, there's a lot of contributing factors. Obviously, being a part of Ring of Honor gets you noticed right away on a national stage, which is, almost certainly the reason why I'm included in that publication. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Right. But in terms of the quickness, I mean, it's a combination of things. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not 6'7". That's obviously got something to do with it. People tend to notice taller guys in wrestling quickly. I have a presentable physique, I guess. So that would be another contributing factor. But in terms of the in-ring ability, that's contributed mostly to my trainer, Brian Fury, at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. As long as you sort of commit the time, because we have training available 3 days a week. So since I started wrestling, I've gone at least 2 to 3 days. Early on, it was every 3 days, but more recently, it's been every 2 to 3 days. Training at the school with Brian, and just taking in knowledge from everybody else, because there's always so many hands on deck to give you extra help. Tommaso Ciampa was at the school for a very long time. Matt Taven, other guys that people would know. Eddie Edwards stops by. There's always such a wealth of knowledge available. My original trainer was Warbeard Hansen. He was a trainer at the school for a long time. So yeah, there's always a ton of opportunity. And then I also got to train with other guys who had the same goals as me. A guy I got to wrestle a lot with is Mikey Webb, and you guys probably saw him in the Top Prospect tournament as well. He's done some Ring of Honor shows too, and he's a guy that I've wrestled a million times, and it's good, because every time I show up to training, I have someone else who wants to train and wants to learn and wants to get better, and it's always helpful.